Lost Rose of Inverness by Jared Brazel. Chapter 1. Two Birds, One Stone. Erik cradled the cardboard box containing his grandmother's dusty knickknacks and books, grunting as the door to the antique shop caught his elbow on the way in. Tired glass windows on either side skewed the hue of sunlight, casting soft warmth across the random smattering of antique heirlooms lining the display cases. Chests, clocks, and chairs highlighted the offerings. Many seemed to have been there for years, no doubt due to the lack of customers in such a small, out-of-the-way town. "Hello there," a tired man's voice called from the back of the shop. "I'll be right with you." Erik approached the long counter, placing his box next to the outdated analog register. Waiting, his eyes had no choice but to wonder. He wiped his hands on his already stained jeans as he paced around the cramped space. Nearly every inch of shelving and wall brimmed over with rich wooden pieces or brass-molded something or others. The density overwhelmed the senses. From the small ornate jewelry boxes to the opulently carved vanities, it smelled like the inside of a liminal factory mixed with earth. Curious, he examined a black and white photograph of a family from a time before smiling had apparently become a thing. Nana would have loved this stuff, he thought, running his hands over the intricate wood carving of some idol from a place he'd never heard of. "Ah, I see you've taken an interest in our Tibetan totem, Mr. Douglas," the old man said, pulling him from his casual perusing. "Ha, no, sir. Just taking a look around. I was running errands in town, and I figured I'd stop in and drop off a few things." He turned around, giving the man a smile. "Forgive me, but you seem to have me at a bit of a disadvantage. You know who I am?" "Yes, of course, my boy. I've known your grandmother for ages. Amelia was a dear friend. She is missed around here." The old man's face lit up at the mention of his grandmother. He must have been at least 70 or more, judging by the beard and walker he leaned on. "Ah, I see Mr. Grimsby, my boy. Theodore Grimsby, at your service." He leaned one hand on the counter, offering the other to him. "Erik Douglas, a pleasure to meet you. Any friend of Nana's?" He shook his hand, surprised at the firmness. "That's quite a grip you have, Mr. Grimsby." "I'm not what I once was, but I'm not dead." He let out a wheezy laugh, smiling through his thick-lensed bifocals. "And please, call me Teddy. Everybody else does." "All right, Teddy. Dead you are not." He play-acted with his hand, flexing as if it was checking for damage. "So you and Nana were friends?" "Yes, my boy. For years, she would come in about once a week to chat or ogle my collection. Oh, she had an eye for the good stuff, that one did." Teddy's smile told him what he needed to know. This man had an innocence to his nature, albeit an odd one. "An eye for the good stuff? My Nana? I know she loved antiquing and her knickknacks." He gestured to the box. "But I just figured it was a casual interest." Teddy pulled himself up to the counter, sifting through the contents of his box with a free hand. "Interesting. It seems our Amelia has decided to keep certain things to herself, then." Excuse me, but is that supposed to mean?" He contorted at the comment, taking a step closer to ice Teddy's handling of her stuff. "I'm afraid I can't be much help as far as Amelia goes, but..." Teddy turned slowly with the aid of his walker, inching his way into the doorway of what appeared to be his office. "Zella, can you help give me a hand up here?" He called into the back and then turned to face him. "What do you mean you can't help me with my grandmother, Mr. Grimsby?" He was interrupted. What the hell just happened? "Please, call me Teddy. And if she chose not to tell you things, then, as her friend of 30 years, I will respect her wishes. Perhaps it's all for the best, my boy." He craned his neck, calling out yet again. "Zella, can you please..." "Dad, I heard you the first time," she said, breaking through the doorway, fixing the glasses on her face. He didn't know what quite to think of the moment. Teddy dropped a bombshell, then tried to play it off like he didn't deserve to know what he had already did. It was about as odd an interaction as he'd ever had. The unresolved question gnawed at his curiosity, but now it seemed as if he was to be pawned off on whoever this Zella girl was. "Teddy, this doesn't make any sense. Nana raised me, and I know for a fact that she didn't keep any secrets from me. She wouldn't do that." He spoke at the retreating man, but couldn't take his eyes off the oddly dressed woman, now digging through the box herself. She seemed to have walked out of a library and forgot how to interact with the world. Indeed, my boy, I understand your dismay. Our Amelia was a woman of depth and complexity, but do not fret. No, I'm sure in time the answers you seek will become clear. My apologies, Mr. Douglas, but that is all I'm at liberty to say. And with that, I will leave you to my daughter Zella. I must bid you good day. Teddy clinked his walker towards the office, not bothering to even look back. But, sir, Erik called after him, but with no luck. He sighed, still bewildered by the direction of the conversation. Mr. Douglas, is it? Just leave it alone, Zella said, still flipping through the various books in the box, separating them into various piles. She refrained from meeting his eyes with her own through the mess of hair and trendy Coke bottle glasses. Thanks, but I don't remember asking your opinion on the subject. He squinted, taken back at her nerve. She merely shrugged at his slight, navigating the excessively long sleeves of her cardigan, interfering with her hand's ability to function. If you say so, sir, the customer is always right. She removed the emptied box to behind the counter, kicking it with the heel of her flats towards the storage area. You know, he has some nerve bringing up stuff and then just acting like it never happened. His heart rate increased by the second, nearly ignoring the woman altogether. She blew dust off the remaining items, taking a closer look despite his disgruntled disposition. Can I ask why these were all covered with sawdust? She asked, brushing a book's cover over the trash can. Some of these are quite valuable, even if it's a fact lost on someone like you. He cocked his head a bit at the remark. Someone like me, eh? I had the box in the bed of my work truck, if you must know. We're lucky that's all that got on them. She finally pulled her eyes from her task, meeting his as she brushed her hair off her glasses. He froze as she glanced him up and down in an awkward fashion. Dust on your flannel, dirty carpenter jeans, pencil tucked in your grimy hat, and boots you should have removed before coming inside. Add the sawdust and that makes you a carpenter or a lumberjack. And since I don't see an axe or a big blue ox, you do the math. She feigned a quick smile, but her round green eyes didn't fake a thing. Wow, truly impressive, Ms. Grimsby. And all this time I thought my secret identity was safe. He stepped closer to the counter, close enough to see her full ensemble. She stepped back in kind. In an overt manner, he returned the favor with a glance. What are you doing, and why do you assume I'm not married? You just made assumptions about me. It's only fair. Let's see. This should be easy. No ring, and you're dressed like a feral librarian. Feral librarian? Now hold on a second. He raised a hand to hush her, earning him a look of shock. You started this. It's my turn now. He scratched at his chin. Where was I? We've got a jean skirt, old flats for shoes, a button-up cardigan that you more than likely knit yourself, and a standard library-issued glasses. Hell, the only thing missing is a cat. He returned her earlier feigned smile, listening a rather maligned expression for his efforts. What? Does the missing cat have your tongue? She stared hard at him, biting her bottom lip. Seconds passed without words before she promptly bent at the waist behind the counter, fumbled around, then popped up back with a large, overweight orange tabby in her arms. This doesn't mean anything, you know. He laughed at the sight, but she managed to hold it together. Sure it doesn't. I'm just lucky, I guess, he said, pushing off the counter with a grin. His eyes held hers, trying to catch her reaction. Now, what are you looking at? Shit. She caught him lingering for a bit too long. He quickly refocused his eyes on the cat, now on the counter. Nothing, sorry. I must have stared off into space there. Maybe she'd buy that? Right, sure you did. She covered her cheeks with her sleeve-engulfed hands, but not in time. He chuckled at the sight of her face going red. Perhaps she was more human than she let on. So about my Nana's stuff. He adjusted his hat. My place is too small to store all these extras, and my grandpa will be moving into the senior sitter pretty soon when he sells the house. What do you think? Changing the subject seemed to diffuse the tension in the shop. She righted herself, directing her focus on the multiple piles she made while he casually pet the cat. What's his name? It's a she, and it's Cleopatra. She grinned, offering the tabby a quick butt scratch. Clever, clever. Cleopatra. It should come as no surprise, I suppose, you loving history in a place like this. He looked around the shop, still petting his new friend. I actually found her as a kitten when I traveled to Cairo with my dad. Cairo? No offense, but I don't exactly get world traveler vibes. That is, from someone like you. His words must have hit a nerve because she gingerly closed the most recent first printing, placed both arms on the case, and shot him a death glare. Are you always such an imbecile? Your wit isn't the weapon you clearly think it is. Can we just get this over with so I can get on with the rest of my day? Her words stung a bit. He feigned giving up, hands in the air. All right, fair enough, he sighed, turning his attention to the piles amid the awkwardness. The distraction of their exchange had momentarily caused him to forget the reason he was even there. So did you know my Nana as well? Not like my dad did, but we had a few chats over the last few years. For what it's worth, she was a lovely lady and her stories always made me laugh. Thanks for saying that. He casually read the first page of an 1800s copy of a collection of William Shakespeare. Well, you said yourself some of these are valuable, so how much are you thinking? That depends, really, but I'm surprised someone so close to their grandmother would be in such a hurry to get rid of things that meant something to her. But from the looks of things, I'm really not that surprised. She glanced at his dirty clothes and outside to his old beat-up truck parked in front of the shop. His own gaze followed hers, lowering his head at her meaning. I thought we weren't doing assumptions anymore, Miss Grimsby. I have my reasons. Can we just get on with it? She glared hard at him, and he preempted her rebuttal, beating her to the draw. Your words, not mine. Fine. She pulled out a slip of paper and began taking a tally, stacking the pile as she went. He watched her work, a model of efficiency. With each book, she'd check the spine, then flip it open gently, double-check the printing date, record something on the paper, and then repeat the process all over again. He opted to remain silent, having had enough back and forth with her grumpiness for one day. But that didn't stop him from mentally trying to deduce what made the odd girl tick. Occasionally she would look up from her task, catching him staring, but he played it off or darted his eyes elsewhere, barely escaping her ire. Her rich wave brunette hair flailed at her shoulders and across her face. Not unkempt, but definitely unruly. The longer he examined her features, the more questions he had. The denim skirt clashed with the multiple pastels of her cardigan. Even the obtuse gold locket she wore between the plunged V of the sweater hung askew. Somehow it seemed fitting on her tallish frame. Can I help you? She clutched her locket, covering the exposed skin on her upper chest. Before he even lifted her eyes to hers, he knew he screwed up, caught red-handed. He shrugged. I get distracted by shiny things? He tried to smile it off, but she scoffed at him in disgust. Yikes. Maybe he wasn't as subtle as he thought. Anyway, she rolled her eyes. I'm done. I'll take this pile here, the pocket watch, and the jewelry box. What about that one? Isn't it the oldest? He gestured to the lone tattered book. She raised an eyebrow, tilting her head. Something tells me even you will want to keep it. Take a look. He spun it around, reading its cover. Fantasies, a fairy romance for men and women by George MacDonald. Printing date, 1858. Dang, it's almost 150 years old, but why not this one? Oh, I'd love to have it for my personal collection, actually. An original printing like this is worth thousands these days. It's a famous 19th century work from Scotland, but that's not what's special about it. Go on, open it up. She removed her pointed frames, taking the opportunity to wipe the lenses. Doing as she instructed, Erik opened to the title page. A handwritten dedication filled the yellowed blank space. He swallowed hard, holding his breath as he tried to discern the flowery cursive pen strokes. As his eyes adjusted to the stylistic flair, the words became clear. To my dearest love, Amelia, I shan't forget this past year we spent. We are king and queen of Doan, and I protest any who should say otherwise. May this copy of Fantasies serve as a reminder of our days in the valley and our nights on the shores of the loch. Though our circumstances tear our hearts across 2 continents and the vast ocean between, the love we have will never be found in need of mending. This will not be our end, of that I swear. Yours always and beyond time, Cameron R., June 7, 1947. I don't understand, he said, flipping through the pages, searching for more. Are you okay? What is it? I thought you'd want to have an item with such a sweet personal note, she asked, the smile fading as she leaned in but stopped just short of putting a hand on his shoulder. This doesn't make any sense. None of it. His pulse raced, but he didn't know why. Who was this Cameron, and why was he spilling his guts to his grandmother? He returned to the inscription, rereading it again and again. What? It doesn't make sense. Help me understand. She positioned herself to read along with him. The dates. My dad was born in November 1947. She lied to me my entire life, if this is true. I don't follow. I'm sorry. I'm sure if... Gritting his teeth, Erik snatched the book, spun in place, and made for the door. What about your items? She called after him. He didn't bother to turn around. Ms. Grimsby, I'm afraid I have somewhere to be. The jingle rang out as he pulled the door open. Okay, I'll just hold on to them. And the name is Zella. Her words died off as the door jingled shut. Heart racing and mind burning, he slung the door open to his truck, tossing the priceless book onto the bench seat. He couldn't turn the key fast enough as he cranked the old square body Ford to life. Erik took one quick glance through the window of the shop, catching the ever-so-peculiar women watching him leave. Slamming the shifter into gear, he stomped on the gas, lurching the beater into the sparse traffic of Main Street. Implications swirled in his mind, threatening to unravel the one solid relationship he'd ever known. She'd been his rock and stand-in mother the past 20 years, but did he really know her? She spoke fondly of her time as a nurse in Patton's army, so he wasn't naive to the fact that she had a life before his grandfather. But that alone didn't bother him in the slightest. But what did was that she had a mysterious man professing his love to her a mere 5 months before his dad was born. Right now, he had questions, and he knew exactly where to find them, his grandfather. This concludes the end of Chapter 1. Be sure to check out next week's installment of Chapters 2 through 3. Thank you for listening.